Hi, AfterBuzzers. You're watching the Outlander After Show, so stay tuned.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AfterBuzz TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Hello, 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 and welcome to the Outlander After Show on AfterBuzz. Tonight, we will be reviewing Season 2, Episode 7, Faith. I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow, and that's MSADRINSNOW. Here's my fellow co-host.
I'm Emily Harlan. You can follow me on Twitter at MLEBeth and on Instagram at OMG, it's MLE.
Awesome, awesome. So, thoughts on tonight's
my gosh,
show?
Yes. This episode, I feel like emotionally drained after watching it.
Yeah.
I felt like it was one from start to finish that was just everything that happened was like awful, pretty much.
Yeah.
You know, there was no like comedic relief. You know, even when we've seen in the past when like, you know, Jamie went through all those awful things, they had the two guys, his two friends that kind of like added a little bit of like, so there was something where we're like, okay, you know, at least
take a breath.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. This episode, I feel like did not have that at all. It was really hard to watch. And I just feel like Caitriona, who plays Claire, just was brilliant in this episode. You know, I feel like we really got to see her full range as an actress. Mm-hmm. You know, in the past we've seen her, you know, deal with things and she's been, you know, fantastic. But I felt like this episode, just how she just went to another level, I felt like just absolutely brilliant. So I loved her in this episode, although it was very hard to watch what her character went through. So
it was a rough episode this time around. A lot of the stuff that I felt like would happen did happen. Mm-hmm. So a part of me was like mildly relieved to be right, to be like, okay, they're not gonna like throw something way out of left field. It's gonna like make me have a complete breakdown. So I was kind of prepared for it to be a very intense episode. But yeah, what she did in this episode was just at the end, and she's cradling the baby and the song, and she's like, I'm gonna lose it. I have stuff to do. I can't be a wreck for the rest of the day. Yeah, I know. But overall, I thought it was just a wonderful, aside of like it being a very painful episode to watch, it was a wonderful episode in terms of how they progressed the story and also a lot of the topics that came up and what they dealt with. Yeah, so
I totally agree. I think that, you know, it's hard to say I enjoyed this episode and it was a good episode because obviously the things that happened I did not enjoy. But from the aspect of like a director's standpoint and a producer's standpoint, I thought it was a very well done episode, just how everything tied together. Although it was, you know, so hard to watch and it tackled all of these really awful things in one episode. It wasn't just like one bad thing. There were so many things going on that were just really, really awful. But I thought the directors and the producers and the writers did a very good job of, you know, kind of putting this episode together. So,
yeah, I thought it was excellently crafted, as some people say. But we opened the episode in 1955 with Claire looking very much the stylish 1950s housewife or businesswoman, whatever she might be, with her little red-headed child.
I know, like just the cutest little girl. And that threw me because I thought that it you know, just how it jumped forward that much. I wasn't ready for it. You know, as a viewer, the first scene I was like, wait, what's happening? But, you know, it makes me happy to see that she, you know, her character in wherever she's at, you know, I think it was Boston, 1954, you know, has this relationship with her daughter, especially after what she went through this episode, you know, that made me happy. But at the same time, it kind of made me like, it's hard because it's, you know, without reading too much into it, you would assume as a viewer that her daughter has red hair, so it must be Jamie's, you know, which is when she told Frank, you know, I'm pregnant, it's not your kid, you know, so that makes me happy, you know, but at the same time, it's like, but, you know, Jamie's not there, and, you know, it was kind of, but yeah, that threw me that it was the first scene right off the episode. I'm like, whoa, okay, all of a sudden we're jumped forward, you know, into the future as much as we've been so far as on this journey of Outlander. Yeah. So, but yeah, that was nice to see.
It kind of confirmed as well, at least for me, that, okay, this child that she's with now is not going to make it. And also, it was nice to finally see, like, because I think we kind of questioned last week, well, but she wasn't as pregnant in the first episode, so what happened? So seeing that, and then also having that kind of confirmation of the little girl having red hair, and then the baby that was stillborn, having red hair. It's like there's no doubt that this is Jamie's child. I mean, hopefully.
I know. I'm like, don't throw another curveball. We can't handle that, okay?
Yeah. But it also, and we'll get to this eventually, it made me also think of, okay, never mind. I won't talk about it yet.
Okay.
But
we'll get there. We'll get there.
But I'm going to get there. So we see that flash, and then we go basically right into where we left her at the end of last week's episode. Or even maybe a few out. I guess it's been like a day or so, because at this... No, we're right there, right in the hospital, because she's in the process of trying to save the baby and figure out what they're trying to do. And we have Monsieur Frere? The doctor /
Monsieur Foray.
Monsieur Foray.
Yes.
Looking over her, trying to see if there's any way to salvage the baby. And you can kind of tell just like by how the nun looks, by how his arms are covered in blood.
I know.
That there's just no way they can save this child. So we see her kind of come to the realization that she's lost the baby. Not only did she lose the baby, but the baby was dead in the womb. Yeah. And so I don't know, how was your response to that?
Well, watching it, I wanted it to be, a dream or something. I had that as an audience member watching this. You're feeling for Claire and for Jamie and for everybody involved, and it's like I wanted it to be a dream where she's gonna wake up and she was gonna be fine, and they saved the baby, and somehow in this weird time travel, it made sense when she went back. I wanted that so bad, obviously, because you don't want to see your character go through something like this. But yeah, just the amount of like blood and chaos and everything that was happening. You kind of expected that the baby was not going to survive, you know? So that was really heartbreaking. And I thought all of the actors involved just did such a fantastic job. You really felt like you were right there next to her, kind of, watching what was happening. So yeah, really, really heartbreaking to watch. And I just thought everybody did such a great job in that scene.
Yeah. And with the baptizing of the baby, and giving the baby the name of Faith, which Claire later commented, like, she has a funny sense of humor, like to name my dead child Faith.
I know. And that name I felt like had so many meanings, because I knew, obviously, going into the episode, the name of the episode was Faith, and they showed so many kind of religious symbols with the Virgin Mary statue, and I thought, and then breaking, and I thought that's how it was going to be tied in, that she was going to have faith, and then knowing that it was the name of the baby that tied in, and then just jumping way ahead, I watched after one of the executive producers and writers said they wanted to kind of make it known that Jamie and Claire sort of restored their faith in each other. Yeah. So there were so many different meanings around that title that I didn't realize going into it. Just seeing that was the baby's name, I thought was really, kind of touching. And
Well, if you think about it, a lot of the things happening in the episode relied on other people having faith in someone else. When you think of Master Raymond having to have faith in Claire, and vice versa, which we'll touch on in just a second, of her having to have faith in him when he comes to see her in the hospital, or even the king having faith in Claire being able to be the La Dame Blanche, and in turn Claire having faith in Jamie when she discovers the truth of what's happened. So it was an ongoing theme throughout the episode of people just having hope and faith in this other person to save them in some way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and just jumping back to Claire in the hospital after she discovers the baby is born, I mean, from jump, she looked like she had lost a lot of blood. Yeah. And you could tell that she was, if not, extremely ill, not long for this world, to the point where they even came in and offered to do last rites. Right. And then we are faced with Master Raymond, who I definitely no longer think is from 1746.
Completely agree.
Coming in, and it was a peripheral. She called it something. She called when part of the
when the placenta
is left in. Yeah. And how it basically poisons your body. And so the fact that he knew that in a way. Yep. How to one, calm her, and then reach in and get it out.
Yeah.
One, how scary is it that like there are certain things that could have easily been taken care of if someone had just been willing to stick their hand in the appropriate place and see if there was anything left inside. Like, that makes me, that scares me to no end. The fact that this guy, who was a doctor, just never thought to just be like, let me just make sure we got everything
out. Yeah, I know. I don't know. And it just, I guess, kind of shows the difference of times and what they were dealing with. But yeah, when I saw Matt, at first I thought it was Jamie. When I saw this cloaked figure coming towards Claire, I'm like, oh my God, he escaped. And then quickly realized it was Master Raymond. And my thoughts on that, first I was like, how did he know that she was, you know, in need and needed that she needed that? You know, he knew like right away. There wasn't any like sort of like trying to diagnose or anything. He went in, told the dog to get out and like took care of business real quick. So, and I immediately thought, he said something like, you know, I'll see you in this life or another, or something along.
Yeah, he said something about we'll see each other again.
Yeah, and he's said that every time pretty much they meet, he says something along those lines.
Yeah.
So I completely agree. And now putting together what you said, knowing that he knew that right away, and Claire knew that from her time.
And that's an advanced science or
exactly
medicine.
Yeah. So I think for sure he's from some other time, or he knows, you know, about the time travel. It seems like, you know, they had Galus last season that kind of was clued in on Claire. Now we have Master Raymond. So yeah, I thought that was it was so I liked how they kind of tied their relationship up, though, how they said, you know, how Master Raymond said, this is what you do for friends. And it that made me feel good for Claire. Like, okay, because, you know, I felt like she didn't really have any friends, I guess, in France. She had Louise, but you could tell the kind of dismay of when she was with her other girlfriends, you know, kind of not wanting to be there.
We all got friends like that.
Exactly. So, yeah, totally. So I liked that they kind of showed, you know, Master Raymond, because at first there were kind of some concerns, like, well, he's talking to the Comte, and is he kind of playing both sides or what? But we got to see that he was 100% there for Claire.
Yeah, at the risk of his life.
At the risk of his life, which was really, really great to see. I'm glad that they kind of put that in, especially seeing that he's no longer going to be in France. Yeah. You know, so that was good to see.
Yeah, it was really good to see. It was also just that commentary he had of the blue aura and how she had it and how he has it. I was like, that's some future time traveler stuff he's talking about there.
I know.
I think that's just like a coincidence.
Yeah.
So that was having them plant that seed. I'm curious to see how they're going to develop that. And I don't think at all that's the last we've seen of him. Whether that be the last we see of him in 1746, 45.
Right.
But I don't think that's the last we're going to see of him.
Yeah.
Which I think that would be really cool as well.
I know. I hope they bring him back.
Right. So just jumping from there. Once she's cured, she doesn't really want to go home. She doesn't have her husband. She doesn't have her baby. And Fergus comes and brings her flowers.
I know.
And just politely asks her, like, will you come home?
Yeah.
And so she comes home, and all the servants, there's got to be a better word than the help. There's just no proper term. The servants.
I can't think of a better one.
I'm like, dang it, we've got to find better, make new words. Come and are very, you know, apologetic and sad and want to say, you know, so sorry for your loss. And she's kind of having it, kind of not having it, you know. Of course, always very kind, but also kind of like, I want to be left alone. Yeah. And then we see Fergus in her room notice a perfume bottle. Yes. And have a response to it.
Right. Yeah. I thought that right away. As soon as I saw it, I thought, are we going to... Even if they didn't give us the answer right away to what that was about, I'm like, it has to be that perfume bottle situation with Jack Randall. And that's when, last episode when we were talking about what happened, because they didn't let us know what happened. They just know they had a kind of an, you know, they ran into each other or saw each other in that room. And I did not want to believe.
I totally know
I didn't want to. I thought, you know what? It was about to happen and Jamie comes in or some, you know, I did not want to believe it. But yeah, after hearing Fergus talk about that and seeing that, I want Jack Randall dead. Sorry, Frank. You have to take one for the team on this one, because that guy needs to die. Go.
We're gonna touch on my theory about that. But no, one, Starz totally gave it away with their viewer discretion list. Which is something I noticed in Masters of Sex, but they've now listed, sometimes they used to just say like sexuality. But now if it's going to be a violent sexual act, they say rape. They just say it like in bold letters, so you know. And I saw that this morning when I watched it. I was like, oh, man. I was like, I don't want to sit through another rape scene.
I know. Well, and especially like with a child, too.
Yeah.
It's like just, you know, and on top of Claire just losing the baby. And I thought, you know, typically I feel like they kind of have focused on one big awful thing in an episode, and then everything else kind of, you know, sets up the next or whatever. But this, on top of what we just watched, you know, and witnessed Claire going through, and then we watched what it was just, gosh, just so heavy and awful. And, you know, I thought the little actor, I forget his name, whoever plays Fergus, really great job, you know. I really like that they're kind of incorporating him more. And I heard in the books he's actually kind of a bigger character, so maybe his role will
be developed a little bit more.
Yeah. But that was just awful. I didn't want to believe that was what was going to happen. But
yeah, I wanted to believe that Jamie would have gotten there in time, but I also feel like if Jamie had gotten there in time, he wouldn't have dueled him.
Yeah.
So he and I knew basically the moment Fergus went in there and the door shut, I was like, oh, and then I saw them fighting. I was like, he raped him. He had to, because I think that's really the only way that Jamie would break his vow. Was not only one, to know that Jack Randall raped someone else again, but to see him in the act of it.
Right. And somebody that's so close to Jamie too, like Fergus, you know. Yeah, I know. And when it kind of showed that Jamie said right away, like, I'm dueling, we're dueling, you know, and we keep jumping forward because there's a lot that ties in, but how he explained to Claire, you know, like, I had to do it, you know, for Fergus. And I got that, you know, but I wanted to stop him in that moment and say, like, think of something else, like, you know, don't do the duel. Think of some other way to kill him. You know, I wanted him, but I understood, obviously, with what Jamie's been through, you know, and then seeing this happen to Fergus, it's like, I'm sure that's the first thing that popped in its head was like, I got to kill this guy. And I'm on board with that.
Yeah. Well, it's just kind of like Jamie as a rape survivor, seeing someone else basically be turned into a rape survivor, especially at that age, to be, 12 years old, to probably not have had any sexual experiences. Right. And to be attacked by this monster. I'm surprised that he was even arrested. Yeah. You know, I know, unfortunately, in the past and in the present, usually when it comes to rape survivors, victims, people tend to kind of say, well, what is there to do? Especially if the survivors happen to be children or female. But I just wanted someone to be like, well, just, you don't tell anyone, just let them take care of them.
I know.
Unfortunately, that was not the case. So
yeah.
But going off of that, before we go further into the Captain Jack saga, I want to talk a little bit about Chapman University. Chapman University is located in Orange County, California, 16 miles from the beach, a little over 30 miles from Los Angeles, and minutes from Disneyland and the Angel Stadium. About 8,000 students are enrolled in undergraduate and graduate programs, and they are best known for their programs in film and television, business, science and technology, education, health sciences, and the arts. Chapman University is a comprehensive university, I'm getting tongue-tied, that still provides personalized attention for its students. Classes are small. The student-faculty ratio is 14-1. For more information, please check out www.chapman.edu/information, and that's www.chapman.edu/information for if you are curious about starting school this coming fall. Yeah.
Very cool.
Okay, so back to the show with Captain Jack. Okay, so what I was going to talk about. So once Claire hears this, she decides that she wants to go to the king. So she goes to the nun whose name I always forget.
Mother Hildegard.
She goes to Mother Hildegard and she asks her if she can possibly get her a meeting with the king. And Mother Hildegard, none or no none, is basically like, well, I just want you to know, yes, I can do that because I am somewhat royalty, but there will be a price and it will be in the form of sex.
Yeah.
And Claire's response is, well, I've lost so much already. might as well go ahead and lose my virtue as well.
Yep.
Paraphrasing. So she goes and meets with the king. And the king is like slimy and still strangely attractive to me. I don't know.
I know.
I'm always mildly confused by him because I'm like, you come off as so sleazy,
Yeah.
but then like kind of innocent and then kind of charming as well. So I don't know what to do with you.
Yeah.
And so he makes it kind of clear that there will be a price.
Mm-hmm.
And he's touching her, and then he basically drops a bomb that he knows that she is La Dame Blanche, and that he does require her services, and he takes her into this like really weird dungeon room that kind of feels like a sex thing going on there, but it's not. So the Comte and Master Raymond come out, and it's exposed that yes, they are on trial and they will be sentenced to death for their practice of the dark arts.
Yeah.
Which his explanation of the dark arts kind of annoyed me because it's basically like we understand that you're striving to learn more, but you know you have to set boundaries on how much you learn. And I was kind of like, this is just. Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, just I think a reason to kill somebody.
Yeah.
Like, let's just find a reason. Yeah, I agree with you on the king. You know, I don't quite know. I can't figure him out. I'm like,
Yeah.
what angle is it? You know, because he does come off as very kind of like odd and quirky, but then sometimes he's very kind of like subdued, and I can't quite figure it out. But yeah, that dungeon area, I'm like, where was that? You know,
Yeah.
it's like this secret wall, and then all these guards and this fire. I'm like, I felt like I was in Game of Thrones, like for a second.
Yeah.
I'm like, did I just step into another?
I felt like I was in Eyes Wide Shut for a split second.
Oh,
I was like,
I can see that. I know. I'm like, where's this going? But yeah, that scene I did not expect. I knew Master Raymond was going to be in there. Obviously, they'd set it up that way. I did not expect to see Saint Germain in
Yeah.
there. That kind of threw me. And I had read something that I don't know if it was in the explanation of the episode, but it said something like one character lives and one character dies, or something like that.
Yeah.
So I was thinking it was going to be Master Raymond that was going to end up dying, because I felt like they kind of set that up with the moment he had with Claire earlier when he said, you know, I will see you again. So I thought, you know, maybe it's in another time or something. And I thought that Saint Germain's character had so much, you know, they were
More
starting.
to do.
Yeah. So that kind of threw me, that whole scene. But yeah, it was very interesting. And we did find out that Saint Germain was the one that poisoned her.
Yeah.
And I literally was like, oh, like,
Yeah.
you know, I was like,
Sure.
finally. I'm glad we found that out, because for so long I'm like, I think it was him, but I'm not sure. And then
Yeah.
he starts to go like, oh, I'm not interested in your personal life. But he was being so creepy, and I'm like, what's going on? So there was definite, I thought,
Yeah.
but there was a definite, like, it did happen. It was him. And he had no mercy. He did not care. Zero.
I felt actually, well, if he had never confessed to it, he probably would have made it out, because I don't think Master Raymond would have done. Well, I guess Master Raymond already knew he did it. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
he was pretty much dead. But that whole like cat and mouse game they played for a little bit with like him bringing out the snake and and her doing like the darkness. I was like, come on, get to it. What you gonna do?
What's happening?
So she gives him the bitter cascara, and Master Raymond. I definitely think he's from the future, but I think it's kind of like the same thing with Galus.
Galus.
Where, and that's why I also didn't think they were going to kill him, because he killed her last year. But where he has lived there for so long that he knows just how the world works.
Yeah.
And he knows that there's no way both of them are going to be leaving. But he's not going to go.
Yeah.
Like, he's just like, it's not going to be me. This guy's a jerk. Let's just get rid of him. So I had been waiting for them to use that necklace in some way. But the look, I did not like Saint Germain, but the look on his face when he saw her necklace turn black and she saw it, and he cried. It was like, oh man,
I know.
I'm sorry.
I know. I was bummed, although, like, you know, I was bummed to see his character go, just because his character was always such a mystery and always kind of fascinated me. You know, it was like, was he evil? Was he not? Is he going to come into, like, I felt like we never really got a handle on it.
Yeah.
So I wanted him to stay, because as an viewer, you know, you're kind of, you're interested in that. But I like that they used that necklace, and I liked that Claire, as soon as she noticed that it was going down, she was like, oh my God, this guy's gonna die.
Yeah.
And like, I'm kind of serving him his death, you know, and you could see although he already admitted that he poisoned her and obviously tried to kill her, you could see that goodness of Claire still kind of come out, like,
yeah, not wanting him to
exactly
die. Yeah.
You know, she was just wanting him to hurt really bad. You know, so I like that they kind of tied that humanity back into Claire, and like showing like she is, you know, a good character regardless of what happens to her. She still wants to, I guess, do good and not just like kill people left and right.
Yeah.
So,
but with his admission that he did poison her, he also denied
the attack. I know.
Which brings me to my Captain Jack theory, which is that Captain Jack, because Captain Jack got stabbed in the dick. So Captain Jack will not be having sex with anyone anytime soon, probably ever again.
Let's hope.
Let's hope. So that kind of makes me think that the person that raped Mary Hawkins was Captain Jack. And she's already with child with his spawn. So basically, the whole Frank situation that she's been worried about has already been locked into place.
Yeah.
Because if it wasn't Saint Germain, and the whole point of getting in with the lay disciples is to be a part of the aristocratic community, then that would be an easy way for Captain Jack to get to easily weasel his way into the community.
Yeah.
To learn a little bit more about them, to like plot his revenge or anything that he was trying to do. So that's why I kind of think that kind of just confirmed that Captain Jack was the one who raped her as his initiation into that group.
Yeah.
And when they showed that initial rape, the first episode or so, I looked at the guy and I was like, that guy looks like
you
Captain
said that.
Jack.
You're like,
Yeah.
he looks so much like him. And I never thought about that
Yeah.
theory. And the whole time, that whole scene that was going on, I was looking at like the king's hand and Saint Germain's hand. You know, I'm like, as soon as Saint Germain collapsed, I'm like, is there going to be a close up of his hand and we're going to see that birthmark and it's going to be like, it was him, and Claire's going to click, you know?
But the guy with the birthmark didn't rape Mary.
Right, but he was just
He was
involved.
just holding. Yeah, he was involved.
So I thought like I was waiting for that kind of to all come into play, but that obviously didn't happen in the episode. So that's a really good theory. I never thought about that. So, you know.
So that's just something to toy with. It might already be in place that she's having a child, which is so messed up.
Poor Mary.
But just jumping off of that, she with Master Raymond pulling fast one in Saint Germain and getting out and getting free. I was happy to see him.
I know.
And be happy.
Yeah.
But then the king turns around and is like, yeah, we have to discuss payment. I will say this. I did not enjoy that scene, but I thought it was a bit funny at the end where she was kind of like, is that it?
I know. I thought that too.
Like her face, like it happened, like it was like 4 thrusts, and she was kind of like,
yeah. And she took the orange too.
Right?
She's like, you know, yeah. I did not. As soon as he was like, we're discussing payment, and he like throws her on the bed, I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
We had she lost the baby. We saw the Fergus rape scene.
Yeah.
Let's not do this. Let's not add on top of this already like just difficult episode. But what I will say is, you know, how she like takes the orange and she's kind of like on her way. Claire, to me, her character is so, she just represents like power and strength and resiliency. And I feel like although she knew like, okay, this is what I have to do and I don't want to do it, it almost felt like she was, I don't want to say in control of the situation, because obviously the king was going to have his way regardless, but it kind of felt like she was kind of saying, I'm not going to play the victim. Like, I'm not going to give you that power. Yeah. Like, you know, whatever you did your thing, I'm taking my orange, I'll see ya, you know? And even when she walked out the door, she kind of like paused. Like, it's almost like she wanted to go back and, I don't know, there was that pause moment.
There was
And they're like, come on, let's go. So I like that about, because her character is so strong to me, you know, regardless of what happens to her, what she has to go through. It's just she's this very resilient character. So I will, like you said, you did not enjoy that scene, but it was kind of like, you know, it wasn't fun to watch, obviously, the situation that was happening, but it was good to see her character kind of prevail over anything. Yeah. So just
kind of be like, well, and even the king, I think that pause kind of was more of like a, is that it? Or
is somebody going to come get me?
Do I need to do? And kudos to the king in a way for just being, not for what he did, but for like at the end being like, okay, keeping his word, one, because he didn't have to. Yeah. And not only giving them free pass, and not free pass, but I can't think of the word.
Like to get Jamie out?
To get Jamie
like
out.
bail him out.
To bail him out, but also allowing them to go back to Scotland freely. He's no longer a fugitive in Scotland.
Right.
So that was really good to see as well. So now that kind of opened the door for them to return home.
Right.
And which is a little sad because I was liking France.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't think, like, I'm glad for their characters that they get to go back to Scotland, obviously, because France has been a nightmare since literally the moment they stepped off of the boat. It has been a nightmare in France, like everything. So I'm glad that their characters get to return, but I was kind of, it felt like an abrupt ending almost, like, wait, what? It's all done here, you know? And I will say that I am going to miss those gorgeous gowns that Claire gets to wear, but I am happy for their characters that they get the hell out of that place because it was just awful, everything for them. I feel like what good came from France? Like anything? I don't know.
The food?
The food. There we go.
That's what I usually say if people ask me something.
And the wine. The food and the wine.
The food.
Yeah.
But just to quickly wrap it up, so Claire and Jamie are finally face to face, and she tells them like what it was like to lose the baby and how she did hate him before she understood, and we see the flashback to her like being able to hold the child and held the child all day.
I know.
And Louise had to come take her and basically kind of just feeling like if there was ever a moment where Claire finally did seem like a little broken, it was at the end of just like, how can we survive this?
Yeah.
And Jamie finally coming forward and being like, we survive it together.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
I know. I know. Well, and that's one thing watching just the whole episode unfold. I'm like, how can they get past this? You know, because obviously their relationship is going to be so different. Like they're not going to be the same. And they address that. You know, she said something like, how can we ever be the same? And Jamie said the only way we can live with this is to carry on. You know, so I was glad to see that there was no resentment, you know, at least after that. Obviously there was a ton of resentment while everything was happening in the beginning of this episode. But at the end, it was nice to see them both come together. And I do have to say, whoever is writing or producing or whatever's going on, I love the Wizard of Oz theme that keeps coming through these episodes. She said, when she was holding the baby, she said, I heard this quote from a movie, "I'm going to miss you most of all." And that's from the Wizard of Oz.
Because I was like, where is that from?
Yeah, I know. I had
Wiz popped in my head.
Yeah, I had to Google it, and I'm like, I think that's the Wizard of Oz, but that of course came out in 1939, so that makes sense for Claire's time. But also thinking back when she gave Leary the little potion to try to make Jamie fall in love with her, you know, she said, put it at his door and click your heels and say, there's no place like love. There's no place like love. Yeah. So somebody, I don't know who's responsible for that, but I love it because I'm a huge Wizard of Oz fan. So I think that's so cool to kind of see the theme that keeps coming back, you know, and maybe it's a theme of, you know, a character trying to get home, you know, and
that's
traveling
one of the last
to
things.
a different area. I don't know. So cool.
That's true. And that's also one of the last things that Claire says to Jamie in the episode. She says, I'm ready to go home.
Yeah, take me
home.
home.
It's kind of leading up to her, like, going to not just Scotland, but, like, home. Like, back to...
Through the Stones home.
Back through the Stones.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see that set up. I'm hoping to see more Murtagh, and I'm sure he'll have a bunch to say and a bunch of opinions on what's gone on in this past episode. I guess we should go ahead into predictions.
Perfect.
Your AFTERBUZZ TV predictions.
Oh, it's different.
Yeah, we had no flashy lights that day. Okay, predictions. I just showing or going off of what they showed, the scenes from next week. We see them back in Scotland, and he's talking to I forget the guy's name. Lovett, I think it was. There was an older gentleman that he's talking to. Something about the Jacobite rebellion, and he said something like, you know, I'll help you out if you give me your wife. Yeah, give me Lollybrook and your wife's like honors or virtue or so. He said something along those lines.
There was one part I couldn't understand. I think that was it.
That was it. And I'm like, don't do this again. Like, Claire's already had this sacrifice.
Stop trying to compel
let's which of course Jamie is not going to go for at all, you know, and under any circumstance. But I just thought that was interesting that that's coming up again, just going to show, you know, the times and how women were treated just like a piece of property. Like, you know, I'll trade you this for her, you know. But I think that it's going to kind of be a shock when they go back to Scotland. I don't think it's going to be an easy, like, let's settle back into the way things were. I think it's going to jump right into them, you know, now trying to figure out the Jacobite rebellion, you know, focus on that even more. And it shows that Prince Charles is in Scotland now, like getting his army ready. So it's going to be interesting to see how Jamie and now Murtagh back in the picture, how they're going to kind of handle that with Prince Charles, because he's thinking everyone's on board and like ready to storm the castles. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a very you know, quick shock to them when they get back into Scotland of it's not the same old Scotland when they left it.
Yeah, I think that as well. I think they've been gone for quite some time now, and they're going to be surprised by what they discover when they return. I also think they might have forgotten how violent Scotland was. I mean, there was a lot of horrible things that happened in France, but majority of them were like of sexual nature, whereas Scotland is just like, I'm gonna come in and it's gonna chop off your hand and blow up your castle. So I think kind of returning to that lifestyle might be a bit of a shock for both of them. Just kind of being like, oh, okay. It's no longer meetings and brothels over wine. So that's a return to that. I also think Captain Jack will make another appearance. It's been a few weeks since, you know, Jamie was in jail for probably a solid month. Yeah. So I think that's what's going to end up happening, and that's all I got to say about that. Yeah. All right. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to the AfterBuzz After Show. I'm Adrian Snow. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Miss Adrian Snow.
I'm Emily Harlan. You can follow me on Twitter at MLEBeth and on Instagram at OMG, it's MLE.
All right, guys. This has been the Outlander After Show, and we will see you all next week.
Bye.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.